Story 1. Las Vegas. Missing lawyer turns into mistrial. A kidnapping trial in Clark County District Court, Las Vegas, was ready to begin. The defendant was already in custody, waiting in the courtroom, but one major problem stopped everything. His defense attorney was missing. The judge asked staff to check whether the lawyer was joining remotely, but no one could find him. Minutes turned into an hour and the courtroom sat idle. After a full 90-minute delay, defense attorney Joseph Caramagno finally arrived. Caramagno explained that he had been driving on Sahara Drive when another vehicle hit him from behind. He said his car became undrivable and the other driver fled. The judge listened but immediately noticed something was off. She told him bluntly that he didn't look right and asked whether he needed medical help. Caramagno said his neck and back were in severe pain and suggested he might have suffered a concussion from whiplash. He even told the court he'd had multiple concussions before, but insisted he could still proceed. The judge wasn't convinced. She called everyone into chambers where a courthouse nurse assessed Caramagno. Back on the record, the judge revealed a key detail. Caramagno had told the nurse he was rear-ended and then hit the car in front of him, something he hadn't mentioned earlier. That raised suspicions. Then the prosecutor added her own observations, saying Caramagno appeared to be slurring his speech, unsteady on his feet, and had even stumbled into the counsel table. At that point, the judge ordered a blood alcohol test. She told Caramagno she didn't believe he was concussed. She believed he was intoxicated. The test came back at .075. Even though it was below Nevada's legal driving limit, the judge ruled that no attorney could proceed in that condition. She declared a mistrial, and Caramagno's law license was placed on disability inactive status, prohibiting him from practicing law in Nevada. Story 2. Michigan. Judge revokes bond after defendant admits lying. In Ann Arbor, Michigan, 33-year-old Julie Vongpachan appeared in court for a probable cause hearing, but the real issue wasn't the original charges. It was whether she broke the rules while out on bond. Vongpachan faced 2 counts of assaulting, resisting, or obstructing police, along with malicious destruction of a building. Police said she had gone to her ex-boyfriend's place of business 2 months earlier and damaged the front door. When officers arrived, she didn't cooperate and was arrested. She was later released on a $10,000 bond, but with strict conditions. She had to check in regularly with community corrections and complete drug testing. The problem began when she missed multiple meetings and failed a drug test. That brought her back before Judge Cedric Simpson, along with her attorney, Torchio Feaster, to determine whether her bonds would be revoked. When asked why she wasn't reporting, Vongpachan claimed she was sick and in the hospital. Judge Simpson acknowledged that explanation, but read through her testing record. She tested negative on January 10th, missed January 19th, tested positive for THC on January 24th, then missed February 7th and February 9th. The judge said it looked like she was playing games with community corrections. Vongpachan insisted the THC was from 2 marijuana-laced cookies eaten days before her arrest. But Judge Simpson pointed out the timeline didn't make sense. If that were true, the drug should have appeared in her system immediately, not 2 weeks later. He sent her to sit in the jury box and told her to come back when she had her story straight. After a private conversation, her attorney returned and corrected the record. He admitted she had been using marijuana and missed testing because she knew she would fail. He said she also continued smoking after the cookies. Judge Simpson made it clear the biggest issue was lying in court. He revoked her bond and remanded her to jail. Later, she was given another chance, posted a $25,000 bond, and eventually pled no contest to 1 assault charge, receiving probation and community service. Story 3. El Dorado, Kansas. Amber Underwood. In El Dorado, Kansas, a first appearance hearing reveals how one false statement can set off a chain reaction that changes multiple lives. 38-year-old Amber Underwood stands before Judge David Rick, charged with interference with law enforcement. She appears without an attorney and faces a possible sentence of up to 1 year in jail and a $2,500 fine. But the real story begins 8 months earlier. According to court records, Underwood had gotten into an altercation with her boyfriend. She called police and claimed he had beaten and choked her. Based on her report, her boyfriend was arrested and charged with aggravated domestic battery, a serious felony that suggests violent harm. For him, the consequences were immediate: public arrest, criminal charges, and time in custody. But 5 months later, Underwood admitted to prosecutors that she had been drinking and lied about what happened. Once the truth came out, the case against her boyfriend was dropped. Then, Underwood was arrested and charged instead, later released on a $2,500 bond. When Judge Rick asks how she pleads, Underwood says she wants to plead guilty. The judge accepts her guilty plea and then asks if she wants to make a statement to explain herself. Underwood says she hasn't decided, which prompts the judge to respond sharply, saying he'll keep his mouth shut too. However, the judge doesn't hide what's on his mind. He speaks about what her boyfriend had to go through, being arrested for a serious felony and facing the possibility of lasting consequences over a lie. Underwood confirms he spent 2 or 3 days in jail. The judge then learns that she is still in a relationship with the boyfriend, and they've been together for 8 years. He remarks that the boyfriend must be incredibly forgiving. Ultimately, the judge accepts the prosecutor's recommendation and sentences Underwood to 6 months of supervised probation, banning alcohol and illegal drugs. The message is clear: forgiveness may exist, but accountability still matters. Story 4. Detroit, Michigan. Anthony Hunt. In Detroit, Michigan, a routine pre-trial hearing turns into a powerful lesson about honesty in court. 53-year-old Anthony Hunt appears remotely before Judge E. Lanice Bryant, charged with driving while intoxicated. Police say Hunt was pulled over 15 months earlier for driving erratically, failed a breath test, and was arrested. He was later released on a $5,000 bond and now returns to court with his attorney, Gregory Moore, ready to accept a plea deal. At first, everything seems straightforward. The judge confirms the people's offer, and Hunt says he wants to accept it. But before Judge Bryant is willing to accept the plea, prosecutor Christina Ritter asks Hunt a direct question: did he consume alcohol before operating the vehicle? Hunt answers yes, and then adds that he had a beer at the bar before driving. That response immediately triggers the judge's skepticism. Judge Bryant pauses and says she refuses to believe a single beer could impair someone's ability to drive. She makes it clear that unless the facts make sense, she will not accept the plea. Hunt repeats the same statement, insisting he only had 1 beer. The judge shuts it down, saying she needs discovery and wants to see what his actual blood alcohol level was. Then she delivers a warning: if the number is high, Hunt is lying on her record. In her words, the math isn't mathing. Hunt's attorney takes a moment to speak privately with him. When Hunt returns, he changes his story and admits he had more than 1 beer. Judge Bryant responds firmly, saying she takes her job and courtroom seriously and could charge him with perjury, but won't. Still, she makes one thing clear: no one comes into her court and lies. Once the truth is finally on the record, Judge Bryant accepts the guilty plea for operating while visibly impaired. Hunt is later sentenced to 12 months probation, random drug and alcohol testing, and a driver improvement class. He completes probation and the case is closed. Story 5. Flint, Michigan. Fake lawyer shock in court. In Flint, Michigan, a pretrial hearing for a routine drunk driving case turns into something far more serious, not because of the defendant, but because of the man sitting beside him. 39-year-old Stephen Nauyorkis appears remotely from inside a car, facing a charge of driving while intoxicated. Police say he was pulled over 5 months earlier, cited for drunk driving, pleaded not guilty, and was released on a $3,000 bond. Now he's back before Judge David Goggins to discuss the next steps. When Judge Goggins confirms the defendant's name, Nauyorkis answers clearly. Then the judge asks a simple question: is your attorney there with you? Now Yorkis says yes, and a man named Alberto Marino speaks up confidently, acting like he's ready to negotiate a deal on the spot. But Judge Goggins doesn't move forward. Instead, he asks Marino for something that every licensed Michigan attorney must have, a P number, a registration identification number. Marino freezes. He asks what the judge means. That moment immediately raises suspicion. Judge Goggins asks directly, "Are you an attorney?" Marino responds yes, but then says he's retired. The judge's tone shifts sharply. He asks Yorkis where he found this attorney. Yorkis explains Marino is his neighbor and a friend who wanted to help, but Judge Goggins cuts him off and demands Marino's address. Marino refuses to provide it and tries to avoid answering questions. The judge sees right through it. He tells Marino he's in trouble and asks where he's licensed. Marino vaguely claims Scottsdale, Arizona, but when asked for a bar number there, he refuses again. At that point, Judge Goggins ends the conversation and announces Marino's name is being turned over to the state bar. He orders Marino off the speaker and warns Yorkis that this man has placed him in a very dangerous legal situation. The case is adjourned, and the judge says he will appoint a real attorney. Later, Yorkis pleads guilty to the lesser charge of driving while impaired. Meanwhile, the State Bar of Michigan opens an investigation into Marino. If he's charged and convicted of impersonating an attorney, he could face up to 1 year in prison and a $1,000 fine. Story 6. Ann Arbor, Michigan. Mouthwash excuse backfires in court. In Ann Arbor, Michigan, a bond violation hearing shows how quickly a judge can dismantle an excuse, especially when the court has heard it all before. 56-year-old Raphael Grabowski is facing a charge of operating a vehicle while intoxicated. A year earlier, he was arrested and released on his own recognizance, meaning he was allowed to remain free without paying bail while awaiting trial. But after he failed to appear at a pretrial hearing, he was arrested again. This time, Grabowski was released only after posting a $25,000 bond, and the court gave him a strict condition: no alcohol use whatsoever. That condition wasn't optional, it was a direct order. But soon, Grabowski tested positive for alcohol on 2 separate occasions, and that brought him back to court before Judge Cedric Simpson. Grabowski's attorney, David Goldstein, tries to explain the test results by claiming his client used mouthwash, but Judge Simpson instantly challenges that argument. He asks the attorney if that's really what the defendant told him, and when Goldstein confirms it, the judge responds bluntly. He doesn't believe it. He says he has never heard of mouthwash lingering that long, and he's not buying the story at all. Then, the judge turns directly to Grabowski and asks if that's truly what happened. The defendant tries to shift the blame, mentioning she drinks wine, hinting that exposure might have come from someone else. But the judge doesn't hesitate. He cuts through the distraction and says what everyone is thinking. "Yeah, that's what I thought happened. You actually drank." Grabowski immediately apologizes. Judge Simpson then makes a clear ruling. Grabowski violated his bond condition of no alcohol use. The judge resets bond at $25,000, allows a 10% privilege, and remands him to jail. After 5 days in custody, Grabowski pays the bond and is released. Later, he accepts a deal and pleads guilty to the lesser charge of operating while impaired. He is sentenced to 5 days time served and 2 years probation. The outcome reinforces a simple truth. When a court gives you a condition, the court expects you to follow it. No excuses. Story 7. Conneaut, Ohio. Judge calls out defendant's excuses. In Conneaut, Ohio, a routine case review quickly turns into a blunt courtroom reality check. 37-year-old Alex Cordero appears before Judge Nicholas Arachi after previously pleading guilty to driving with a suspended license and expired plates. 9 months earlier, Cordero had already been sentenced to 180 days in jail. However, 175 days were suspended. The deal was simple. If he obtained a valid Ohio driver's license within 6 months, the remaining 5 days would be suspended too. The court even granted him an extra 3-month extension, but despite the added time and repeated chances, Cordero still missed the deadline. Now he's back in court, and the judge wants answers. Judge Arachi starts by pointing out that Cordero didn't show up for his jail report date. Cordero immediately pushes back, saying that wasn't what he was told. He claims he came to the court to deliver a letter instead. But the more he speaks, the more his story starts shifting, and the judge notices instantly. To clear it up, Judge Arachi calls in his clerk, Angelina Vasquez. According to the judge, Cordero is now claiming he turned himself in to report to jail at the court on December 3rd and was turned away. But that statement doesn't match what he said seconds earlier. The judge stops him mid-sentence and demands the truth. Did he show up to turn himself in, or did he only drop off a letter? The clerk confirms what the judge already suspects. The judge explains something basic that Cordero should have understood from the start. You don't turn yourself in to the court. You turn yourself in to the jail. The only reason Cordero would have come to court was to ask for another extension, which is exactly what his letter was trying to do. Then Judge Arachi delivers the punchline. He tells Cordero he's full of it. He says he's been doing this for 36 years and isn't fooled by changing stories. And yet, despite calling him out, he gives Cordero another break. 2 weeks later, Cordero returns with proof of a valid Ohio driver's license and pays his remaining court costs. He avoids jail completely, and the case is closed.